All right. Well, welcome again to another episode of The Broker Journey. I'm excited for this episode, like I am for all my episodes, because I get to interview awesome people in the broker channel who are making it happen. And today is a very special episode because I have a very good friend, someone who is like family to me. I call her my sister from another mister. And she has been someone that has helped me throughout my journey here on the wholesale side. And through her, I got to meet her wonderful partner, Brad. And so we have Brad and Jamie, the CEO and president of Amerifund. And so I'm excited for you guys to hear their stories, their journey in the channel, their expertise, and what they have built for not only to add value and help those that need home ownership, but also those who work for and with them. And so without further ado, I would like to kick it over to Jamie.
Thank you so much, my brother from another mother. Well, it has been a really awesome journey in this industry. This is my 26th year in the industry. And for more than 2 of those decades, Brad and I have been intertwined with different companies and things like that. So my journey started because my mom was a real estate agent. So growing up, I was, stuck on weekends putting open house signs out and sitting at open houses, which at the time I thought was the most boring thing ever. But of course, it led me while in college to being a loan officer assistant for a loan officer at the brokerage that my mom's real estate firm owned. Back then, it was very common for real estate firms to have both a mortgage company and the real estate side. So I kind of caught the bug and I realized 2 things. One, college wasn't for me. I wasn't excited about it. And 2, the mortgage industry, the puzzle of each loan, the experience of helping families who didn't believe that they could ever be homeowners, many of them first generation Americans, many of them 8 or 9 family members together to qualify. It was impactful. It made a difference. And no 2 loans were alike. So I began the process of mastering every role within the industry, starting all the way at the very bottom. I was a receptionist running the front desk and sat in every seat until I had mastered operations all the way through post-closing. At the same time, the loan officer I very, very first worked for as a 18-year-old happened to be the neighbor of a man named Brad Rice. And so in 1999, he introduced me to Brad, had a small brokerage, was just starting out, was looking for a processor. And the rest is really history. We had a little office in the next town over. I started a process for Brad, and it was like immediate yin and yang, immediate synergy, immediate like-minded people. And we knew that whatever we were going to do, it was going to be big and it was going to be together. And we've had several iterations of the journey, culminating in Amerifund, which we started a little over 10 years ago. And I was really proud and honored to become a partner and to become the president back in 2021. And we're just really excited about where we're headed from here.
Yeah. That is all true. I will attest to it. Thank you, Fraser, for the introduction. And I am excited to chat with you today, primarily because we have something that's super unique. And I know this because I've been in the mortgage business for more than 3 decades. So I started the industry in 1993. Yes, folks, that is when we took handwritten loan applications. And it was in more than triplicate. It wound up toward the end, there were 7 copies you had to press through. Our copy machines only copied 1 page at a time. We use Transbox. And I'm saying this because the old timers can recognize this and they'll smile a little bit. But I took applications in people's homes, but I had a mentor. So I started in the business. It was literally the year I bought my first home. I got married. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was going to college. I had real estate as a major, but didn't know what part of real estate I wanted to work in. And there was that mortgage broker, this gal sitting across the table taking my loan application. I'm like, this looks interesting. I'm good at math. And I spent a day with her. And I was like, I could do this. So I started in the business. I had a mentor, and he was quite a bit older than I was. He was an old timer, and he just told me what to do, and I did it. I didn't know any better. So I just did everything he said. And I literally, from the point of, I started taking all of my friends. I had, this is when you used, like a day timer, handwritten. You had your address book was handwritten. Everything was handwritten. I went and I grabbed my parents' address book. I had my own. I went through my high school yearbook. I put everybody into a database, and it was called, the CRM was called Telemagic. Okay. And so look that up. The guy who developed Telemagic is the godfather of CRMs. He still lives in San Diego. I connected with him last year, believe it or not. But, I just knew. He said, look, you need everybody in a database so you can keep track and you can keep in touch with them and tell them what you do. He said, the beauty about what you do is that everybody is a potential customer. You're not selling medical equipment where you have to go to hospitals and sell them. You're not selling other things like where you have a very specific audience. Anybody you run into, whether it's the waitress helping you at a restaurant or your veterinarian or anybody, the person doing your dry cleaning, they're a potential candidate. You need to communicate with them and let them know what you do for a living. And he said something else to me. He said, if you're doing business with somebody, expect them to do business with you. And through the years, I've kind of remembered this, and I used to originate loans and really like some of the people I do business with, but they would never refer me business. And so I changed, whether it was an accountant or whoever it was. So anyway, long story short, originated loans. By the end of the 1990s, I was closing about 40, 50 loans a month. I had a team of 5 assistants. And I broke off from my then partner, who was a fantastic guy. We had a very amicable split. I wanted to grow the company. He didn't. I was a partner at that point. And he said, go on your own. He was older than I was. And he said, I'm just going to keep originating. I said, that's fine. I started a company called Mortgage Corp of America. And that's when I met Jamie, as she said. So it was 1999. And over the course of 8 years, that company grew into a 43 state operation. We did wholesale under the name Zone Funding. We did retail. We did consumer direct. We had a call center. We were the first ones in our backyard that did 30-minute infomercials for mortgages. It was times were flying high. We wrote our own mortgage product even. I learned a lot about every aspect of the business, but Jamie was unique in that she could sit at any seat in the company and perform. So it didn't matter if we were very thin in a department and we lost somebody. So we always expected excellence. And if somebody wasn't good or really wasn't part of the culture, Jamie could jump in and run that seat as a backup. So that was really, really great. And we took that all the way to the end. The wheels fell off the bus like they did for everybody in 2007, 2008. And we hit a reset button. But like Jamie said, started back up. And Amerifun's a unique animal. And we're like excited to chat about it today. Not about just what we're doing with Amerifund, but the culture we're building and why and how we've built that culture through our 2-decade plus relationship and the strength that we have. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the things I do and the things that Jamie does that really make us successful. So
great. I love it. And guys, look, I'm not, and I'm talking to the audience here, is that I try to learn as least amount as possible beforehand, because I like to hear the story just as you are, and learning it. And what's awesome about, because some of these things I didn't know about Jamie, and I didn't, know Brad's beginning, but it's so funny because, and Jamie knows the story of, and actually both Brad, because I've been on your guys' podcast, but about my story and my mom and getting started in the business. And what's crazy is that almost is like a parallel to my mom, receptionist, same with operations heavy, could sit at any seat at the table. And then her our partner, the chairman of our company, that when they teamed up to it was a family company and own Mason McDuffie Mortgage, same thing, is like she used to process his loans, right? So and he was the sales guy. He was going out, he was getting the business, he was doing all that stuff. And now he went way back farther than Brad. And what's funny is, I know we joke about it. I was waiting for Brad to talk about the abacus piece of doing stuff, but honestly, it's like, we're just talking about the 90s. To me, that wasn't like ancient, right? I was thinking I think about when our chairman would tell stories about the 70s and the 60s and going into agent offices and getting deals, files off of their desk and and originating them. But you really don't think about it. It's just amazing how far we've we've just transitioned since just the 90s, and it doesn't really think, we really don't feel like it's that old. But what I love hearing about the story and what Brad was talking, because you're really hearing about the fundamentals of building a business, right? And for those of you that have been in the industry for a while, you understand, and especially going back then, you understand what it was like back then to build a business, understand what it was like to originate in operations, especially, and not having digital files. You're having, drawers and drawers and stacks and file rooms of these huge, thick, crazy loan files, fax machines, memos, all of that stuff. And it's just great because now we're in the here and now. But ultimately, what I think, which I think gets glossed over quite a bit, is that, especially when you're talking about people that like you two that have developed such a close and great partnership, where you play off of each other's strengths, right? Or someone's weak in one area and is filled by the other, is ultimately how that builds just like a solid, workable foundation that creates great branches, so to speak, off of a strong tree in other areas of the business. And just being around you guys and experiencing it, it's just great. It's like it's a natural fit. There doesn't seem to be like someone has like a completely different idea of how things are. It's just that like it's almost kind of sharing that same brain. And I like that because I experienced that personally working at a mortgage company. And so that's great. It's great to hear the story. I wrote down a lot of notes just off of what Brad was talking about and what Jamie was talking about. And when we talk about today, right, we're talking about different lending environment, different conditions, and trying to build a business for today. And I know, you guys definitely don't have the mindset of just, hey, let's just survive. You guys have always, as long as I've known you, had that mindset of grow. And how do we create something different? How do we provide value? How do we do something above and beyond what everyone else is doing? And so, if I'd like to kind of focus on, going back to, just, building AmeriFUN, and if you could summarize into like the mission of what you're, not just what, cause I don't want to put it in past tense as like, hey, that was our mission back then, but it's changed. And I'm sure there's an evolution involved with that. But if I go back to when you guys were starting AmeriFUN and the mission, what, maybe it's a sentence, maybe it's a couple words, but what is that mission?
It's being good stewards of our industry. And that means that every person in any seat here has to truly care. They have to have a passion for what we're doing, which is we're helping people achieve the American dream. We're helping people with what is often the largest financial transaction that they will ever experience. And we're teaching and empowering originators, no matter whether they're seasoned and have bad habits, or are brand new and don't know where to begin, or have really mastered certain loans and want to master other specialty loans. We believe in education. We believe in taking the responsibility that we have that impacts people's lives very seriously. And because of that, the culture has built itself. There is a culture of collaboration, not of competition. There is a belief that we win together, and it's at the foundation of everyone who's here. And because of that, folks that join feel like they've been enveloped into something, a community, and that community is powerful and very, very important to anyone's growth. And I think that, it kind of goes back to that old saying that we see all the time. And it's, why would you take advice from someone who hasn't been where you're going? There is so much to be said for the experiences we've had. I mean, we've certainly run into walls, learned the hard way. We talk about just surviving. Sadly, many companies haven't survived this last couple of years. But Brad and I share a belief that you grow through the struggle, that this is the time, the opportune time to grow, because others are shrinking. There's talent in the marketplace. This is the time, and has been now for a good 2 years, where you double down, you improve your processes, you find your value proposition, and you dive into it. We burn the boats. Failure's not an option. We're growing through any market challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I love it. And when, we talked earlier, and Brad, you had mentioned a phrase to me, rocket fuel. And and I haven't, and I believe it's a book, right? And can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I read that book. And when I say read, let me clarify. I didn't read it. I hate reading. I'm not a fast reader. I love listening to books, and Audible's the best thing that came about. And that's what I've got. So anyway, I listened to a book and I'm halfway through it and I go, God dang it. This is Jamie and I. And I literally messaged her. I said, you got to download this book. But she reads. She's like Evelyn Wood. I don't know if you know what that is, but back in the 80s, 90s, look up Evelyn Wood. It was like a speed reading course you could take. That's Jamie.
I swear Brad's not 80. If you guys can't see the video, you're just listening to the audio. I swear Brad's not 80 years old. He's actually
I know,
he's
right?
actually a young guy here. Go
ahead. But that said, look, I'm listening to this book and I'm going, man, this is us. So it talks about partnerships are way more powerful than having just a single leader. And the reason that partnerships, and it gives examples and it gives companies that you would recognize, big companies where there were two people. I mean, I'll just say one of them, but Apple, right? Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. They had different skill sets, right? So one is a visionary and the other one's an integrator. And so Jamie can, like, if I'll share vision all the time, I have this idea, and she can immediately process that idea and go, okay, here's how we implement that. And then she can execute on it and make it reality. So she's got the skill set that I don't have. And that's what really works. And so when you said, hey, I've interacted with you guys a lot and I can see that, there's a lot of agreement there. I never hear you guys with different ideas. And that's really the case because, whether it's her coming up with the idea or I do, it's like we have the same line of thinking. I honestly can't remember a time where we've argued about like a direction we're going or anything like that. It's just like, okay, that could work, but here's how we'll do it. And so that Rocket Fuel book, for those of you that are in partnerships that do have a relationship that is business related, I would recommend listening or reading that book. And really extrapolating out of that what could apply to your relationship. And I think that's the reason that not only did we have success in the previous company, because even though Jamie wasn't an owner of that company, she was instrumental. She was really the other leader. She was number two. And in this case, obviously we're partners, but that's really, I think, what has been our secret sauce.
It is. And I think that sometimes we look at business partnerships and relationships like they're not personal. And the bottom line is that they are. They're just like a marriage. Both of us have extremely long-term, very, very happy relationships with our partners in life. But when you're a partner in business, it's the same thing. Everything's not all or nothing. There are things that we don't agree on, but the way that we talk through those things is with the mindset that we both have the same objective. And that, as an example, Brad doesn't just throw a vision at me. Brad will throw 5 or 6 visions at me. And I have to process them all and say to him, here's what I think. I think that one of these is viable to execute on immediately. I think that 2 of these are probably 6 months down the line. And there's one of these that I think is probably not the move for us. And here's why. So let's table that one entirely and focus in this order on these things. And over many years of trust and probably many years of mistakes, we've come to a place with one another where there's just inherent trust and belief that the person's perspective is credible. And so for that reason, there isn't an argument. It's more like, let me think about that for a minute and wrap my brain around what you're saying and come back to a place where we align and we know what the next objective is.
I'll add one more thing to that. So there's also something about longevity and phases of life. And for those of you, so I've been married for more than 30 years. For those, yes, I'm not 80. I get it. Whatever. But,
Brad, you're not helping your cause here, buddy.
Yeah. You got to watch the YouTube. Don't just listen to the audio. I'm really not that old. But, there's something about living through phases of life. And if you don't make it through certain phases, that's why 50% of marriages end in divorce and all these things. Like, you have to understand people. And I've gone through my growth through the years. Jamie's gone through hers, and we won't talk about all the, underlying things that happen just, emotionally and physiologically and all those things. But to be able to get through all that and still have, that relationships. That's where you get to those, those folks that you see that are, married for 70 years and they're
Mhm.
sitting in a swing together and all that, because they were able to get through all those phases of their lives. So there's something to that longevity that also creates the cohesiveness. And honestly, that's what really transcends us into the culture of the company, right? Because it all starts at the top. Like, what's our relationship like? I have no problem giving Jamie the floor. You guys know that. Like, hey,
Mhm.
take it. You want to go do the circuit, go talk on stages, be the one. Like, I don't care. I don't need to be the limelight. But behind the scenes, we're a partnership, right? And so I'm encouraging her. I'm her cheerleader. And then she does the same for me. I have other endeavors I'm involved in. And so she's there to support that as well. So, I think that's really what works, is that rocket fuel relationship.
Yeah, and I think one of the key words that that Jamie brought up is look, with any partnership, obviously, yeah, no one ever 100% agrees. Doesn't matter whether you're blood related, right? It doesn't matter anything, marriage, all that stuff. There's never 100% agree. If there is, something's wrong with you, right? Like, I think there's a little wackiness going on if everything's 100% and there's never disagreement. But ultimately, and you brought it up as well, Brad, just in a different way, is the trust, right? Is that the trust when there's a disagreement, you could trust the other one knowing like, hey, look, we may disagree. We may not look at this the same way, but I trust you're an expert on your area. You trust that I'm an expert on mine. And so that negates just like, hey, that person's just saying that because of X, Y, and Z and whatever. And that's when all the other crap tends to happen. And that's how you have a long partnership like what you guys have had. And that also, that trust then just naturally, because I've seen it up front, is that then that blends into all the culture and everything else that you're doing from the top down, because there's trust in the leadership. And I can tell you right now, in the industry at large, is that there is a vacuum of leadership right now, and that happens. And Jamie said this quote to me, and I know other people have said it before, but it was when the pie shrinks, the table manners change, right? And so, and you see that in the industry, because you mentioned not surviving. So a lot of loan officers have not renewed their license. A lot of movement, obviously, with everything going on. Then you have lenders that are out of the picture now, and everyone tends that were maybe arm in arm before. There's no trust, and so you start to see some things happen, and then you really see it at the leadership level, and nothing specifically, but just at large, you just see that kind of erode, and it all begins with trust. And so when you trust really in that other person, right, especially when you guys are in the trenches building something, this industry is not easy, it's not for the weak, and so you have to have that, because this industry is hard enough, right, even when everything is going well. And so if you don't have that trust, it just makes things more difficult. And when I see what you guys are talking about, and you mentioned Jamie going out there, and because and I'm going to get into this in a second, because I want you guys both to talk about this, because you both have it, is it comes to what you said about being a steward of the industry, and that all comes down to one word, and that's passion. Right? You have a passion for what you guys do. It's not like, hey, like, let's start a mortgage company, we could probably make a good amount of money, and let's just see how far this goes. Is that there's an underlying passion to do well and to do right. And so I want you guys to talk, and Jamie, we could talk a little bit about your advocacy. Brad, we could talk a little bit about the leadership and sales, but talk to me, and I'll let you guys pick who gets to go first, but talk to me a little about your passion for what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you get to a certain point, you've been in a specific industry for a period of time. You've mastered a lot of the roles, the nuts and bolts of it are there. You begin to ask yourself, like, what's next, and what else is there aside from what I'm already doing? For me, it became about seeing so much need in our space, seeing so many loan officers that had no direction, no help, no support, nobody to bounce ideas off of. Now, born out of pre-crash, pre-2008, it was a dog eat dog world. There was no broker calling another broker and asking for advice and getting help whatsoever. But through the bad rap we all took, there was a community that sort of formed itself. And as soon as I realized that that community existed, I knew I wanted to be a part of fostering it, because I knew what it felt like not to have that as a younger industry professional. With that in mind, I have made friendships that will last me a lifetime, yours included. I have leveled up myself because I wake up every day and I think about, where can I take 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and just pay it forward or help somebody? Something that I've done 10 times that this person's struggling through. I can answer them in 15 minutes and help them through, help them learn, teach them how to find answers. It started with doing that outside of our company because our company was smaller. It ended up that we began to open our doors and welcome others into the company. But through that, I've never lost the commitment to helping my peers. I've never, ever turned down or ignored a person who's needed help. Today, it might look a little different for me. It might be that I'm directing them somewhere for help, or it might be that I've allotted a certain amount of time in my schedule to always give back. But largely, it goes back to how I was raised, which is you do the right thing and the right things happen. I know it sounds cliche, it sounds altruistic, but I refuse to behave any other way. And the fact that we're still here after all these years and all these market cycles and all these changes should be a testament to the fact that there's something to be said for doing the right thing.
100%.
And then Brad, talk to me a little bit about your passion for sales and leadership and leveling people up.
Yeah, I think for me, I just really love building.
Mm-hmm.
And I love building in a way where it brings me pleasure through culture and through relationships. So I used to say this, everything's so remote now. Like, most of our people are, out of the area and out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got just kind of a core group of people that are here locally. And so they get a little bit more flavor of me and kind of the daily joking and my personality and all that sort of thing. But I used to say this all the time because we had kind of everybody under one roof except for, reps that were, specific in certain states. So we had a few hundred people that, I wanted to, you spend 2/3 of your life with the people you work with and 1/3 with the, people from home, and you got to like the people you work with. And so we would hire based on that. Like, that was more important than, their resume and where they went to school, and like, is there a synergy there and that culture? And I think that for me, I love that. I love building. Of course, I mean, I've been a salesperson since, early on. I really never worked for another company. Even when we had the company we built, Mortgage Corp, I didn't have a template for it. I never worked for another mortgage company. I never worked for another company, another big company. I always have been an entrepreneur. And so I just had a knack for that building, and I just kind of learned as I went. And that for me is really enjoyable. And that's what I really like to do. And that's my passion. And so it's great to do that with somebody that you enjoy, because we spend time together on and off the field. So like, that's the other thing, I wish more of our people were closer, because I like to have, a party here and there at my house and that sort of thing, and have all our coworkers only over. I'm looking at Stuart in our studio over here, and I can picture him for our wig party. He's laughing, but I love that sort of thing. Like, you get to know people on a different level, and that's what I really have a passion for.
I'm still traumatized by the Grease wig party that we had a couple of months ago, and I showed up and you were in a dress. So let's just in a pink wig, and I'd like to suppress that memory and just push that down.
That on video. We're not putting that on. In fact, I want to say it's probably, I remember, I think Jamie posted a picture and it looked like she had done like it dyed her hair or whatever. It's probably from one of the wig. And I'm like, oh man, hey, that actually looked pretty good. And she's like, oh, it was a wig. It got me though. I thought it was real, but what do I know? I'm a guy. So, but it sounds, to me, and this is, and then, I want to get into when you're talking about building, talking about, it's culture, but it's culture before it was real culture, before there was a name to it. It's about quality, right? It's about quality, hiring quality people that you're going to get along with, because it is true. And I don't think a lot of people do think about the fact that you're going to spend more time with the people at work than you do outside of work, because it just takes a big part of your life. And, so as we look at the landscape now, right? It's 2024. Obviously, we've gone through or continuing to go through bear market. We're continuing to go through a transition and a shift of kind of a new normal when it comes into lending. As owners, obviously, you weren't sitting there thinking, okay, well, hey, we're just going to continue doing everything we've always done and then hope for the best. It's because hope is not a strategy. But you guys looked at like, all right, what do we build? What do we do? Obviously, and you mentioned, hey, we want to grow through this. We're not going to cut our way through this. We're going to grow our way through this and build a better future. So talk to me about what you guys are, what you've built and going into this year, and what you're looking at and what you're continuing to do and improve upon, so that not only can you could create a great, a great model and structure for the people that are with you now, but for the people that, that want to join you in the future.
Yeah. I think I'll never forget it. I want to say it was probably 2021 when I looked at Brad and said, what do you think about growing this thing? I want to grow it differently than we did our last company. We're not quite the workaholics we used to be. I'm a mom. I wasn't then. I want to do it differently, but I want to retain the same culture. The first thing I think we need to do is start to expand. So we were in one state through the entire 2020 when we had more loans than we knew what to do with. Primarily, Brad's and my own personal originations were driving the company. And I think we both reached that point where we were like, what's next? And the what's next for us was, let's get into some additional states. Let's attract some other loan officers of like minds who are looking for a solid place, a place that has exceptional operational infrastructure, a place that has the blueprint for what it takes to be a top producing originator and can plug anyone's business in and help them to be out of the weeds and do the thing they love, which is relationship building, guiding clients into the right loan. And then that's it. We know it works because Brad did it. He did it as a one-man originator, closing 40 to 50 loans a month himself with a team of 5 people. He created the original conveyor belt. I was there. So all we needed to do was scale that conveyor belt and teach others that it is possible to replicate the results if you just listen and look at the blueprint and do the thing. So Brad started by listening to his mentor and just doing what he said, right? There is a blueprint for this. You know this, Fraser. You speak to people all day, every day about marketing strategies, being different, breaking the mold. There is a way to be successful with a plan, with consistency, and understanding that the results don't come on day one. They come much later, but they only come if you apply the same behavior repeatedly until you begin to get momentum. For me, as we've grown, we're now in 25 states with about 5 pending. We'll be in 30 states very soon here. Well over 55, 57 loan officers now at the company through a really challenging market. It's been incredible because now that we've had a good batch of loan officers that joined us a little over a year ago, almost all of those loan officers that did what we told them to do, that followed the blueprint, they've got loans in process. We had a police officer who was able to retire from the police force and make mortgages his primary job. We have a nurse who is well on her way to doing the same thing. They did the work. They stuck to their guns, and now they have results. And it is incredible to watch that, to be championing these people. When you come across people who are willing to do what it takes, success is inevitable for them, but to see them achieve it is incredible.
Yeah. Look, like you said, we decided to lean into this thing. So yeah, that is what happened. I actually was very involved in another startup that I began just before things got busy in 2020. And when Jamie came to me and said, "Hey, I'm ready to grow this thing," I go, "All right, let's do it." I go, "You're going to take the laboring order," which she has. I'm there to support her, but it really was about, we need to expand the footprint because, this is a mobile society now, which of course we realized through COVID, like people are moving, they're still moving, a lot of them are moving out of California. So we need to service those same customers and clients wherever they move. So it was expanding the footprint and expanding our product mix. So we literally can do anything. I had shelved a website that I had developed in, I think it was around 2018, for a division of the company called Reverse Loan Solutions, just waiting for somebody to come in and help run it, because I had done reverse loans since early in my career and really liked them and felt that they were a big benefit and see the opportunity there, but we didn't have the right leadership to run it. And so that was part of our push, was getting somebody in to help do that, which we did. And that's a division company that's taking off, a builder division, so that we can help builders, because we need more product. We need more homes out there. And other things, like we do some chattel loans. We do really what the organic side of this has been is through the growth, through the recruiting and hiring. And look, we're not perfect, and we learn along the way and we make adjustments. We're really responsive. Like if people are communicative, and that's what we try to instill in our people, is just an open line of communication. And if you have that and you give us feedback, we act very quickly. So you need a certain loan product, tell us what lender does it, boom, we'll get approved. And that's kind of how organically we've leaned in this thing. We've spared no expense in a time, of course, when there hasn't been a whole lot of volume. We've leaned into it. We'll invest in the company so that we're stronger and we have a better foundation when we come out of this. So, those are the things that we've done. And now the next push is really the education side of it, which we brought on somebody to run our VA education. So that's a person on staff who's actually very well known in the industry as well. And he's there to support anybody originating a VA loan, whatever it is. If it's a one-time close, a super jumbo VA loan, whatever it is, all the nuances that are involved there. People get started with us and they have a loan and they don't know what to do with it, and he helps them. He creates a loan out of thin air for them. There's the reverse loan education. So if somebody hasn't done a reverse loan, we'll teach you how to do them. Come in, take the training, get certified, start originating them. All of these are the things that we're doing so that now we can go out there and bring good people in, add to the culture. And this is what I love to hear. So Fraser, and I'm just going to give you one example. We had a gentleman join us 2 weeks ago, originated his first loan. He already won what we call our Ameristar. We do Ameristar awards every week and every month. He already won our Ameristar of the week in his first weeks of because he jumped in. He's in every single training, and he's already originating a loan with us. And he's not a seasoned loan officer. He's relatively new, but he's just and he just absorbed the culture. And listening to him kind of thank everybody when we gave him this award was just so rewarding for us. And that's what we're doing. So now we want to get the word out. We want to make sure that we are bringing in more good people, because we have built something that's really special.
We have. And I think that there is a huge segment of our industry. They're not necessarily brand newly licensed loan originators. They're people that have been licensed for a couple years. They might have gotten licensed in 2020 or 2021 thinking, oh my gosh, what an opportunity there is. I need to learn how to do this. But they landed in various places where there was no plan. And if you're coming into this industry without having had any prior experience with financial services or banking, it's a hard growth pattern. And without any kind of a formula for it, without people to bounce things off of, without guidance, many originators have a complete failure to launch. They become discouraged and they peter out. And we love those people, because those are typically people who are so eager and hungry to take off that they're willing to take the instructions and do it. Showing up is quite honestly more than half the battle. The people that show up are the people that are just absorbing all this knowledge and information. And as soon as they get an at bat with a potential client, they have such a good chance of converting that because they've built a foundation by investing in themselves. Those are the people that are just thriving here with us that we're so happy to have. And that gentleman that Brad mentioned is one of those.
Knowledge creates opportunity.
It absolutely does.
Yeah. And, I always fall back to, my times, and, I don't think I'll ever be working, for a lender again. I think I'm happy doing what I'm doing now, but in my years doing that, one thing that I noticed, and I still see, and we all see it, right? And look, to me, it's all about fit. And what I hear from you guys is that really what you focus on, where a lot of people are like, I just want to grow. It's like, look, we want to build the best and the right fit for the right people. And that was the core. And that's what I think is different than what a lot of other people are going, or just trying to grow for growth's sake. Right. And good. Like, I get it. If you're not growing, you're not growing, you're dying, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. But for you guys, what I feel that, that you have built is, what I'm hearing is leaning in the training and development, right? Having someone that's focused on that, and being accessible, right? Being accessible and having some semblance of structure, of course, but just not trying to create layers and layers of bureaucracy and red tape, as being a flat organization, one that's accessible to your people. And I see a lot of parallels from, my mortgage company, and doing the same thing is being a champion of training and development, because everyone says, hey, oh yeah, we train. We know that isn't the case. And some loan officers, look, it's just like, in an NFL draft, for those of you that are sports, you guys are going to understand what I'm saying. Is sometimes a really good player gets drafted by a real crappy organization, or maybe, or let me not say crappy, but an organization that really isn't the best fit for them. Right. And when you don't have the training, you don't have the mentorship, you don't have a plan or a strategy, and you're just trying to fit them in, then sometimes they're going to be considered a bust, right? Hey, you're a bust. You didn't do anything here. And it's amazing to see a loan officer that really wasn't doing well somewhere else, but then thrive at a place when they find their right fit. And so I think, the strategy that you guys have had of building the best and the right fit as first, quality over quantity,
Yes.
I think in the end is what's really, really going to make a difference for what you guys do as you build for the future. And that's what I think is the key, is that you got to have that training, you got to have that mentorship, you got to let those people thrive and find, but you got to give them somewhat of a success path, right? You got to give them something that they're going to be able to hang their hats on, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting. We are really committed to remaining a very flat organization because we know how important it is to be accessible. Sure, we have an incredible team. There is not much that our team can't do, but there are occasions where it needs to be Brad or it needs to be me. I'll even jump in on loan level stuff from time to time, because we have had the fortune of building some really strong relationships with our lending partners. And sometimes it is a phone call from me or an email from me or a text from me that phrases and presents the situation in a way that makes sense. And I pull from my background in underwriting. I pull from my background in secondary and post-closing to speak their language and know confidently that that loan is a good loan. It's going to perform and it's going to be saleable and insurable in the market. That's a difference between us and, say, another company. I don't know that a lot of leaders necessarily are willing to do it or are equipped to speak on those terms at the loan level. We will do that. And it's interesting because although we have dozens of success stories of those loan officers that had that failure to launch elsewhere and then came here and they're thriving, what it also did that we weren't expecting was it started to attract totally different segments of our industry. One in particular that took us by surprise but has been excellent for us is we have a pretty decent handful of former broker owners who at one time had scaled their company and had several loan officers, some 15 plus loan officers when the boom was happening, got very, very disenchanted and burnt out because they realized that they didn't love it. What they love doing is originating. They don't love HR and payroll and accounting and compliance and audits and surety bonds and licensing renewals and all those things, right? They realized that they were able to maturely look at their situation and go, I don't jump out of bed every day excited anymore. All the things I'm doing now that I'm spending my time on aren't fulfilling to me. And by the way, they don't fill my coffers either. So by virtue of a couple of these happening sort of accidentally through relationships that I had and that Brad had, it became another formula in our arsenal. It became another thing that people are highly successful with because we built the infrastructure. We've been building infrastructure and, improving upon the conveyor belt for decades. Our infrastructure is solid. It's not hard to plug into that. You retain your brand, you retain your company name, but you do away with the things that keep you busy but don't fulfill you. We've had multiple brokers, some are very well known in our space, do that. And they're so happy to see that we were able to deliver on what we said we would do. And that's another big deal for us, delivering. You can say you do things, you can advertise the carrot in the sky, but you've got to deliver if you hope to retain great people and continue to build on that foundation.
Yeah. Love it. So as we wrap up here, what is it, obviously we, this is a challenging season for most. If your outlook, and I think we've already covered as far as like your ideas, but what do you see as the future of AmeriFUN?
I'll tell you, we're going to continue to grow in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
We have, it's really interesting because we have a weekly webinar that we do that kind of explains our value prop, and we really run from A to Z. We say, what we're about, the things we have in place that help loan officers, the blueprint, if you will, which I'm actually developing right now with you, Fraser, on a 90-day blueprint to help people to really restart or kickstart their business based on the way I did it, right? Maybe people have been in the business for a long period of time, but really didn't do it right and didn't give them a business that would last year in, year out, decade in, decade out, regardless of market conditions. And so we're templatizing that. But when I say the right way, it's like we're very competitive. We pay very well. The things that we have in place are impressive and really give tremendous income opportunities to our loan officers. But that's not our number one value prop. That's not what we're pushing out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it all the time because I'm on everybody's list, of course, because I'm a licensee. I see almost everybody else's value prop being, we pay more. We pay more. And I'll tell you what, it's smoke and mirrors. Like we know where the income is on loans. We know all the levels of income that can be made, and we know where things are hidden. We know where they're not delivering really the best product or the best rate to the consumer in order to pay what they're paying. And we know the nickel and diming, and we know all these other things. Whereas if that's your number one value prop, then there's always going to be a letdown and a disappointment. Where ours is quite different. We want you to come here as a loan officer and build a career, not just have a job, but build a career that you can rely on for decades and not be dependent on Amerifund, not be dependent on Jamie or Brad or any one person, but give you as the originator all the power to be dependent on yourself because you're building the right infrastructure. And that's really where we excel and where we're going to continue to concentrate our efforts.
Love it. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and the story, not just the story individually, but your partnership and what you're building with Amerifund and like you could hear the passion, you could see the drive and what you guys want to do. And I've mentioned this and guys, I'm not just just saying it to say it, is that there is so many parallels between my mortgage company that I had to what you guys are doing. And I know for a fact it's being in the business to be able to answer those questions where you're not just somewhere in an office that's not accessible, where loan officers could talk to you. And not only that, but you could get into loan level issues. And that's such a big, for the loan officers that I came up with, that I understand that was, I remember when my mom retired and during a retirement party, they would say up, but they're all like, these were people that had worked from countrywide all over the place, right? You pick the company, they work there. And they just said the biggest thing was that one is, you know, other than, you know, my mom being a woman CEO, and that was just something that the female loan officers had someone to kind of to look up to. But ultimately it was to know that I could call them, I could talk to them, and that they would not pass me off to someone else, that they would actually understand what I was talking about as an originator, be able to get into the loan level details. And I've just never had that anywhere. And they just didn't want her to retire because they're like, there's like no one that's going to replace that. And that's why from just an emotional standpoint, it's just, it's great to see that you guys are doing that same type of environment, because I know loan officers will appreciate it. So guys, I think you guys are doing something special. That's why I'm happy to be working with you guys and talking and sharing your story. And I look forward to what the future brings. So Brad, Jamie, thank you so much for joining me. And hey, everyone that's listening, I would say I hope you got value out of this episode, but I don't need to, because I know you did. It's through the stories and expertise of people that are doing the job just like you, that are running businesses, that are in the trenches, dealing with the trials and tribulations just like you. You're going to gain experience and expertise just by listening to their stories. And hey, if you guys are interested, they have a weekly webinar. You go to joinamerifund.com. Everything's going to be in the show notes, in the description, in this article. If you're reading the article and now you're watching the video, you're going to see it in there too. Connect with them, right? Just if you're interested and if you have a question, like Brad and Jamie aren't hard to find, so you can always reach out and connect with them. And thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.